Welcome to Love and Trauma, the real deal. I'm Danielle Sebastian, best-selling author, coach, and yes, I've been through the marriage trenches myself. This show is all about how to actually deal with trauma in relationships and make it work without losing your mind. If you're ready for honest talk, no fluff, and tools that cut through the noise, tune in, because let's face it, love can be a bit of a mess, but it's a mess worth figuring out. This is Love and Trauma, the real deal.
Have you ever had a moment, maybe in the middle of the night, maybe in the car after an argument, maybe standing alone in your kitchen, where you whisper to yourself, I can't keep living like this? Not because you don't love him, not because you want to leave, but because the distance, the tension, the walking on eggshells has worn your heart down to threads. If that's you, I want you to take a slow breath because what I'm about to say might change everything. You're not losing your marriage. You're losing the battle to dysregulation. And no one ever taught you that. No one told you why tiny moments turn into explosions, why silence feels like punishment, why simple questions trigger big reactions, or why you keep carrying the emotional load so he doesn't collapse under it. You just keep trying, holding it together, pretending everything was fine, even when it wasn't. Today's episode is the recap I wish I had years ago. I'm pulling together 3 pieces that finally made my own marriage make sense. The truth behind why disconnection is just a symptom, the moment I hit my breaking point, alone, exhausted, and done pretending, and the powerful insights Erin Smith shared about re-regulating in a relationship touched by trauma. And if you stay with me, you're going to see your relationship clearer than you ever have before. You're going to understand the patterns that keep you stuck. You're going to understand why your partner reacts the way he does. And you're going to understand why you've been carrying so much more than you were ever meant to hold. And make sure you stay until the end because the last insight I share, the one Erin and I both lived in different ways, is the shift that can change your entire marriage starting tonight. Not next year, not after counseling, tonight. So let's jump into it. I used to think our marriage problems were about communication. I thought if I could just say the right thing or stay calm long enough, things would finally get better. But what I didn't realize was that both of our nervous systems were in survival mode. And survival mode doesn't do connection, it does protection. So maybe for you, it looks like walking on eggshells or arguments that come out of nowhere or the cold silence that lasts for hours, even days. That's what dysregulation looks like in real life. It's your body or your partner's body trying to protect you from a perceived threat, even when the threat is just a hard conversation or a tone of voice. In today's episode, I'm doing something completely different. You're not getting a guest today. You're going to get me. And I am going to break down how dysregulation secretly drives disconnection, how to spot the patterns that keep you stuck, and how to take back your calm, even if your partner doesn't change a thing. Because the truth is this, you can't control their nervous system, but you can absolutely regulate yours. And when you do, everything starts to shift. Okay, so let's talk about what dysregulation actually is and how it might be showing up in your relationship right now. Okay, so before we dive into the kind of sciencey, not that sciencey, but a little bit more sciencey part of the nervous system, I want to tell you a story because it's going to make everything I'm about to explain really stick. After college, I was a total career woman, just starting out as a pharmacist. And for some reason, I decided I needed a new challenge. So I took up running. And honestly, this is one of the best decisions I ever made. I met an incredible community of women, including my 2 best friends, Bree and Jenny. We had this gorgeous park in the middle of our city. It's called Greeno Park, and it has a paved path around it. But off that path are all these dirt trails that lead down to a little creek, over little bridges, and it's really kind of a magical place to run. So one spring morning, the three of us were out there early. And most of you know I live in Montana. So that's a little important part of this story. But my friend Bree was leading us, and Jenny and I were chatting behind her, and she decided to take one of those dirt trail offshoots. So we're running along talking when suddenly Bree stops dead in her tracks. Jenny and we bump right into her, and she turns around, eyes wide, whisper yelling, "It's a bear." Now, you need to know a little bit about my friends. So Bree is the environmentalist. She worked at the Humane Society at the time. She loves the animals. She's been camping a million times. Now, Jenny, she loves the outdoors, but doesn't really like to touch the outdoors. And you won't catch her camping anywhere without running water. And me, I'm like somewhere in between. But here's what happened in that split second. Bree turned around, got big, arms out, and went full straight into fight mode. Now, Jenny, she didn't even hesitate. She turned around, and the last thing you could see was the bottom of her hokas as she was running off the trail. And me, I froze. I just stood there, clutching Bree's arm. Just classic freeze response. Now, thankfully, that bear just wandered right past us across the trail and into someone's yard and just started chewing an apple or something that it found in a tree. But here's why I tell you that story. Our three reactions, the fight, flight, and freeze, are the same survival responses your nervous system uses when it thinks you're in danger. Now, just imagine this. What if I hadn't just seen one bear? What if I was a kid and I was running into bears all the time? And some of those bears got aggressive and some hurt me. I'd start to see bears everywhere. And I'd ask people, "Did you see the bear?" And they'd say, "No." But then I'd run into one anyway. I'd stop trusting people. I'd start believing danger was around every corner because for me, it was. And that's what happens to kids who grow up in chaos, neglect, or abuse. Their nervous system learns the world isn't safe. And that wiring just doesn't disappear when they grow up. So fast forward to adulthood, that hyper alert brain, that bear detector is still scanning for danger. Only now the bears look very different. Like you innocently asking your husband, "Hey, can you do the dishes tonight?" What you meant was a normal everyday request. But what their trauma brain hears is, "You're failing, you're not enough, you're doing it wrong." And then you see it, the fight, like snapping back or getting defensive, the flight, walking away or shutting the door, the freeze, total silence. And when that happens, your nervous system jumps in too. You feel hurt, you feel unseen and rejected, and you start to wonder, what did I do wrong? And guess what? Now your alarm is blaring. Two people both reacting to bears that aren't even there. And that's dysregulation. It's not a character flaw. It's a nervous system doing its best to survive. And when I finally understood this, it changed everything because I stopped trying to fix my husband's reactions and started focusing on what I could control, my own regulation. And that's why in my wife care framework, the very first step is comprehend. Because when you can understand what's really happening under the surface, you stop blaming, you stop taking it personally, and you start seeing your relationship for what it truly is. Two nervous systems trying to find safety. So the next time conflict flares up or silence settles in, I want you to remember it's not that your relationship is broken. It's that your bodies are protecting you in the only way they know how. Now that you understand how this wiring gets created, let's talk about what it means for everyone's nervous system cares everywhere. Let's talk about what this actually means relationship. Because here's the hard truth. Connection in trauma impacted relationships feels impossible, but not because you're broken, because your nervous systems are working against each other. When someone grows up in chaotic chaos, neglect, abuse, unpredictable parents, constant tension, their nervous system doesn't just have the occasional bare moment, it lives there. That hyper alert state becomes normal. And over time, that constant stress can develop into something called complex PTSD or CPTSD. And this isn't about one traumatic event, it's about years of that smoke alarm blaring so often that the system forgets how to turn it off. So when that person grows up and tries to have a normal adult relationship, even the tiniest thing can trip the alarm. And this is what it kind of looks like. You say, I need some space right now. They hear, you don't love me anymore. You ask, are those the fries you like? I'm just trying to be thoughtful. And they feel, wow, I can't even get fries right. I'm failing again. Yes, that fries story. This one actually happened to me. I thought I was being kind and he felt criticized. Instant defensiveness. That conversation went sideways before we even knew what happened. And it's not just the misunderstanding, right? It's what happens after. That's when the survival responses take over. The fight, anger, blame, or raised voices. The freeze, the cold wall of silence. The flight, avoidance, leaving the room, diving into work or chores. And here's the kicker. When their trauma response shows up, it almost always triggers yours. You feel rejected. You feel dismissed. You start thinking, why am I the only one trying? And without realizing it, your own nervous system flips its switch too. And now you're both in protection mode. Your bodies are screaming, danger, even when you're just trying to talk about dinner. And that's the dysregulation loop. Each nervous system is trying to protect itself, but in doing so, it's making the other feel unsafe. So no wonder communication tools don't seem to work. The I statements, the calm tones, the active listening, all of that stuff is built for regulated nervous systems. But in trauma-impacted relationships, conflict doesn't start from calm. It starts from alarm. And when the alarms are going off, you can't logic your way back to love because the body doesn't feel safe enough to even hear the words. So when you find yourself thinking, why does he react like that to something so small? This is why. His body is seeing bears everywhere, and yours is too now, just different ones. And it's not that you don't love each other. It's not that you're not trying hard enough. It's that your nervous systems are trying to survive and not connect. But here's the hopeful part. Once you understand what's happening, you can start changing how you respond. Finally say, oh, this is the pressure cooker. We're both dysregulated. It stopped feeling personal. It stopped feeling like he was the enemy. And I started to realize we weren't fighting against each other. We were fighting for safety in different ways. And that awareness, that's where everything starts to change. Now, I want to share how I shifted from trying to fix him to actually re-regulating myself and how that single change began to break the cycle for both of us. When I finally saw our patterns for what they were, not bad communication, but rather nervous system reactions colliding, something clicked. I'd spent years believing if I just tried harder, said it the right way, or stayed calm enough, things would finally change. But the harder I tried, the worse it got. And one day, in the middle of yet another argument that went nowhere, it hit me. It wasn't fixing the problem. It was feeding it. Every time I tried to force connection, explain harder, or talk him into understanding, my nervous system was in fight mode and his was in freeze. I was chasing safety by controlling, and he was chasing safety by shutting down. We were both exhausted, and neither of us felt safe enough to come closer. That realization, as simple as it sounds, changed everything. Because for the first time, I stopped asking, why won't he change? Why won't he just come out of the room and talk to me? And started asking, how can I regulate? See, when you live with someone who's experienced trauma, you learn to read every sign, every silence, every shift in tone. You start trying to predict their reactions before they even happen. You adapt, you accommodate, you do anything to keep the peace. But here's the problem. Peace that depends on you managing someone else's emotion is not peace. It's hypervigilance in disguise. And that was me. I'd convinced myself that if I could just do it all right, he'd finally feel safe enough to soften. If I just kept holding everything together, eventually he would just meet me halfway. But trauma doesn't work that way. You can't logic or love someone out of dysregulation. You can only model calm until their nervous system feels safe enough to join you there. And that's when I began to really understand what I now call re-regulation. It's not about fixing your partner. It's about stabilizing yourself so the relationship has a chance to stabilize too. It looked like this in real life. When he withdrew, instead of chasing him down the hallway, I learned to take a breath and ground my body. When I felt that urge to fix, explain, or defend, I practiced pausing, even just for 10 seconds, and asking, what's happening inside me right now? Or when my mind started to spin stories like he doesn't care or I'm all alone, I knew this was going to happen again, I started naming what was really true instead. I'm scared, I'm tired, I need connection, and I also need calm. Those tiny moments started to change the temperature in our home. He noticed I wasn't reacting the same way anymore. And over time, the arguments didn't escalate as fast. The silences, you guys, did not last as long. And we began to have space for repair, not because he became a different person overnight, but because I stopped pouring gasoline on a nervous system fire. And this is where my framework began to take shape. At the time, I didn't have a name for it. But later, I realized it was the foundation of the care method I now teach other wives walking through this same journey. The C is comprehend the trauma. You have to understand what's going on deep beneath the surface. The A is accessing support. The R is rebuilding resilience and self-care. And the E is establishing safer connection. Or sometimes it shows up as pause. The pause, accept it's not about you. Unlock the clues, seek support, engage when ready. Both are simply blueprints for one truth. You can't create connection from chaos. You have to calm the system first. I remember the first night I tried it. We'd been circling the same argument for years. Finances, stress, tone, it didn't matter. He went quiet. And instead of filling the silence, I walked outside, took 3 deep breaths, and whispered to myself, calm is not giving up. It's grounding. When I came back inside, I didn't launch into a speech. I just said, hey, I know you're overwhelmed. So am I. Let's pause and try again later. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't storm off. He just nodded. The moment wasn't flashy, people. There was no apology or breakthrough music playing in the background, but it was our first flicker of peace. The moment our nervous system stopped colliding and started syncing again. And that's when I learned that re-regulation doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't have to be this huge thing. It looks like quiet. It looks boring. It looks like one person choosing calm again and again until the air in the room changes. So if you're sitting there thinking, I've tried everything, I get it. But I want you to know you don't have to try everything. You just have to try something different. Stop fixing, start regulating, and watch what begins to shift. Okay, in this next part, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. The simple trauma-informed tools that helped me regulate myself and begin rebuilding our marriage, one small grounded step at a time. Once I finally understood that our fights weren't really about the topic, they were about our nervous systems, I stopped searching for the perfect words and started practicing new habits. So these 4 tools are completely how I changed, how I show up in my marriage. They're simple and they're powerful when you actually use them in real moments. So let's walk through them. The number 1 probably won't surprise you, but pause when triggered. Nothing good ever comes out of a triggered conversation, period. When your body's in survival mode, logic is gone. It's like you've seen a bear and none of that it's all instinctual. You can't listen, reason, or connect when your brain thinks you're in danger. So now, the moment I feel my chest tighten or my voice rise, I pause. Even 10 seconds helps. Sometimes I step outside. Sometimes I close my eyes and take 3 deep breaths because no real resolution can happen until both people are regulated. I used to think pausing meant giving up, but now I know it means protecting connection. Ground first, talk later. Tool number 2, don't take it personally. This one was huge for me. When my husband shut down, I got reactive. I used to take it as rejection, like I wasn't enough or I'd done something wrong. But once I understood trauma, I realized his reaction wasn't about me. It was his nervous system protecting him from old pain. When you stop taking it personally, you stop reacting to the story in your head and start responding to the human in front of you. Now, when he goes quiet, I remind myself, this isn't about me. He's dysregulated. And that single thought keeps me grounded instead of spiraling. Don't make meaning, make space. And number 3 is name what's real instead of pretending. For years, I was the queen of I'm fine, smiling through tension, acting like everything was normal, but pretending creates distance, not peace. Now I practice gentle honesty. I might say things like, I'm feeling tense and I don't want to take that out on you. Or this feels off between us and I'd like to find our way back. No blame, just truth with compassion. When you name what's real, you bring authenticity back into the room, and authenticity is what safety grows from. Then, and this is key, you need to come back to it after things have calmed down. That's when your nervous systems are open, and that's when you can actually have a fruitful conversation. You can't connect through performance, only through presence. And tool number 4 is create micro safety every day. Healing doesn't happen in one big moment. It happens in the tiny, repeated ones. For us, it looked like 1 device-free dinner a week, 5-minute check-ins before bed, predictable routines that told our nervous systems we're safe. You can't force trust. You build it through consistency. And small signs of safety accumulate. A soft tone, a predictable routine, a calm goodbye before work. These moments whisper to the body, it's safe to relax here. And when both partners start to feel safe, the whole rhythm of the relationship changes.
Banging your head against the wall, trying to navigate the complexities of a relationship impacted by childhood trauma, it doesn't have to be this daunting. When you're married to a partner with unresolved childhood trauma, it can feel like you're walking on eggshells, never quite knowing what will set them off. No matter what you try, it feels like there's always something triggering another emotional response that seems completely out of context. And the harder you try to fix it,
the more discouraged you feel. So what's the issue here? Navigating marriage with a trauma survivor is different. The love languages don't work. Date nights don't work. Self-help books don't help. But here's the good news. I've created something that does work. Something built from years of hard-earned lessons and real-life experience. Ready to take the first step toward real change? Let's talk. I'm offering a free one-on-one call where we'll dive into what's going on in your relationship and figure out a way forward together. This isn't just another quick chat. It's a chance to finally be heard, to share what you're going through with someone who truly gets it. No judgment, just real support. So if you're ready to start making sense of it all and find a little more peace in your marriage, book your free call now. Your happiness, your peace, and your relationship are worth it. Let's do it together.
It's being good at not abandoning myself. And I'm going to say that again. A boundary is meant to not abandon yourself. Because I used to allow things to happen and not set boundaries because I didn't know how to. And B, I wanted to keep the relationship. And so I would sacrifice myself and my own values without even realizing it. I would just be like, okay, that's no big deal. I'll let that happen. Or, I'd get upset about something, but then I wouldn't actually follow through, or I'd try to set a boundary, but I wouldn't follow through on it because I didn't want to lose the relationship. And so I was constantly abandoning myself. And so coming into this new relationship, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't putting up boundaries just for the sake of putting up boundaries, right? Just because now I know how to do it, but doing it in line with what I considered to be my self-worth and my self-respect. So how do I set a boundary that allows him to be him, right? Because he's a good person. He's not trying, to do anything to hurt me. Because sometimes there was an interpretation of that too, right? Like, you're doing this on purpose to hurt me, but it's really not. Like, again, it's not about me. It's something they're going through. But for him, he has that reactivity that, like, I jump to defensiveness. I'm interpreting this as you're doing, something that you're not, but I'm interpreting it as you're doing something, you're dismissing me, or you don't care, or you are, telling me I'm dumb, or I'm not good enough, or whatever the interpretation is. So yeah, those are, I would say, the two things that we're constantly trying to work on. And really at the heart of all of that is self-regulation. Like, how do you get to that point where you can actually identify, is this a snake?
I know, it's so key. It's so key, the regulation. And if one person can do it, right, then it's easier for the other person.
I think so. It does become difficult. I will say it is challenging to be the one who is trying to regulate. Right. Yeah. If you feel like there is resentment that kind of grows. And I'm very vocal about it too. I'm like, listen, this has been happening a lot lately. We need to talk to me about this. Like, what can we do? Because I love you. I want to be with you. I also need to not feel like I'm the only one who's constantly having to de-escalate the situation and regulate, right? And
I think that follow-up conversation is really important for that. To not just get through the moment and diffuse and then push it under the rug. I think that's where the resentment starts to build. But you actually do talk about that incident and how you want to improve it together, and not so that one person doesn't feel like they're the one doing it all the time.
Yeah. And so my challenge with that is to approach that. I've had to learn, how do I approach that conversation without setting him off? Because if you do it the wrong way, anyone would get defensive. Would be like, because they're scared of losing the relationship. They're scared of disappointing you. He doesn't want to disappoint me. He doesn't want me to be upset.
And they feel bad.
Of course, there's guilt associated with it. They're like, or shame, totally. So that has been a huge challenge for me. Like, especially if I'm upset and I'm like, oh, this has got to stop, right? Like, you get that thought of like, when is this going to end? Waiting for the right moment, And part of that right moment is not just what mood is he in, but what mood am I in? Am I in a place where I can say this without bringing the anger or the judgment into it? Because those two things have no place in the conversation of like, hey, this is not working for me. What can we do? Or what can I do to help you manage these reactions? Or, how can we do this? How can we work on this together? Because ultimately they've got to do it themselves, right? I've got to do that myself. I can't rely on him to help regulate me. That's not going to work. And vice versa. He can't rely on me. There are things that I can learn, the signs, right? I've learned the signs, and that's when I see the signs, man, I will get right to maybe now's not the time to have this conversation.
And the sooner you do it, the better.
Okay,
right?
Exactly. Oh my God. Yeah. The sooner, no, don't even try.
The sooner you stop that, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But to have,
I've even found things on where to be, right? Like I used to be like, we need to sit down and talk. Oh no, I don't do that anymore, right? I try to be doing something else.
Yes. Oh, you've got
whether it's go for a walk or be while we're doing the dishes, it seems like that tends to not, but they'll put those defensive mechanisms into place right away. Again, good time, be in a good headspace. Yeah.
Gotta be a good time. Gotta be a good headspace. And like, the way you enter into the conversation will dictate the way it goes. If you start with, something that
we have to work on this, right?
I have to
this really needs to change.
Yeah. I really didn't like the way you talked to me the other day. Oh, that's not going to go well. No. So finding those like really interesting ways to lead into the conversation, I kind of turn it into a game for myself. I challenge myself to do it because it's not easy. And especially when you're upset about it or you're scared, you're like, I don't want to have to end this relationship, but like, if this keeps going this way, like, what am I supposed to do? And so that makes me scared. And so I have to make sure I'm not coming at that from a scared place either. I'm like, okay, whatever happens, happens. I'm going to be okay because I've been through hell already. So I know that I can survive it. But I'm going to approach this conversation from a place of love. I'm going to approach this conversation from a place of, hey, I'm like really concerned about you, or I'm concerned about us, or, bringing it up in a more lighthearted way. Like, hey, how did you feel about that conversation that we had the other day?
Yeah. One of my big go-tos is I've been thinking a lot about such and such.
Yeah. I like that one.
And starting it out like that, to know that you're being thoughtful, and it puts me in a good place, right? Where me too, I've been thoughtful about this, and how I want to say it.
Yeah. I set the stage too, sometimes very, very, matter of factly too. Like if I am worried about having the conversation, I will start it out by saying like, hey, I really, I want to talk to you about something, but I'm worried that you're going to get upset about it. Can we?
That's one of my techniques too. Tools is to name what I think the reaction is going to be. To set the stage. I know you're gonna think I'm being picky, or I know you're gonna think this.
You're probably tired of hearing about this, but
those things are they also put you at a even playing field. Very good tip. I love it. I do want to touch on boundaries a little bit, because that is so also a key element, I think, that everybody needs to do better, right? Tell me what, how you've been able to incorporate that, in your relationship that you feel good about.
Well, first I had to get to know what those boundaries are. Like what is it that I'm willing to tolerate, and what am I not willing to tolerate? Like, what are your deal breakers essentially? And being super honest about what those are, and being willing to walk away if those things are there, because that's the part that I used to not understand, right? I used to think, oh, so if I just say, if you do this again, I'm leaving, right? And that's supposed to work. Like, well, if you don't actually leave, like the person's never going to take you seriously again, right?
Ever.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And so I had to be very upfront with William in the beginning of our relationship with like, look, this is what I experienced in my past relationship. And I'm telling you right now, I am not going to allow it to play out the way that it did ever again. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to raise my hand early when I start to detect the signs that this is happening. And that way, as long as you're okay with getting into it with me, like, not avoiding it, having the difficult conversation, then we'll be able to smooth it out before it becomes a massive problem, right? So I had to ask him up front, like, are you okay with that? Like, this is a contract that we're entering into, essentially, right? This is what I need. Are you willing to do that? And I'm constantly checking in with him on that too. I'm like, look, I know, we've talked about this before, right? Like, if you're setting the stage for the conversation, we've talked about this before, you're probably tired of hearing it. But again, this is just me, like, saying, I'm noticing this, and this is what I've experienced in the past. And so I'm wondering, like, is this a pattern that's going to continue, or can we nip it in the bud now? Are you willing to talk this out with me and not let it get swept under the rug? So I will, like, set those boundaries for myself. What am I willing to tolerate? What am I not willing to tolerate? And then what are the signs of those things that I'm not willing to tolerate? And is my partner willing to address those things with me early on rather than waiting until, it becomes a mountain? Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's so key, because I think that sometimes we just get so in survival mode and
Yeah.
terrified and scared and lonely that we
Exactly.
do put up with things that, we never would,
Normally not.
that we normally wouldn't. And I do know, it can be done, even if you've gone down a road that you don't like. Boundaries can still be said, but people can't hold to a boundary if they don't know what it is.
Exactly.
And that starts with you knowing what that is.
Exactly. You have to know what that is, and you have to be able to recognize it when it's happening.
Yes.
And so checking in with yourself first, like, what is it, what am I willing to do, not willing to do, and then being aware, super aware, and willing to address it when it might seem scary or hard. And not being afraid of, if this doesn't work out. So, like, I've turned it into relationships are not meant to last forever no matter what. Like, it would be ideal, it would be nice if, like, when we said those vows, we were like, yep, forever no matter what. It's not no matter what. It's no matter what, as long as we are respecting ourselves, respecting each other, and we have love and connection. Otherwise, what is the point? Like, you're just gonna, drive each other nuts and burn the relationship to the ground eventually.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, things do need to get better. You need,
you have to.
You need to get better and evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both people. Oh, that episode was packed full of information that would have served me so well 10 years ago. And I'm so glad to be able to get this out into the world. And before we close today, I want to leave you with the real deal. The 3 takeaways that can change the entire direction of your marriage starting today. These are the truths I wish someone had whispered in my ear the night everything fell apart. The truths that Erin lived in her own marriage, and the truths that most partners of trauma survivors never get told. Number 1, you are not powerless. You have choices. And I hope you saw this today. Whether it was the moment that I spent the hotel room in a hotel room at Christmas, or the moment that Erin realized she didn't have to abandon herself to keep the peace, or the moment you recognized your own pattern as you listened, there is so much more control in your hands than you've been made to believe. You cannot stop your partner's dysregulation, but you can absolutely choose how you respond to it. You can breathe, you can pause, you can refuse to be pulled into the cycle, and you can choose regulation over reaction, even when everything inside you wants to fight, freeze, or fix. And that single choice, it changes the entire nervous system dynamic in your home. You are not stuck. You are not hopeless. You are not at the mercy of those moments. You have choices, and your choices matter. Number 2, it takes practice, not perfection. If you heard anything in Erin's story, let it be this. Sometimes it doesn't work the first time. Sometimes it doesn't work the second time. And sometimes it still doesn't land perfectly because nervous system healing isn't a one and done. It's repetition, it's recalibration, it's the quiet, unglamorous work of trying again tomorrow. Practice is what rewires your triggers. Practice is what calms your body faster each time. Practice is coming up with those scripts to repair instead of it being explosive. The only failed attempt is the one where you give up on yourself. It's not about doing it perfectly. It's about doing it again. And number 3, boundaries are bridges, not walls. This is the truth that sets so many women free. A boundary is not a punishment. It is not an ultimatum. It is not a threat. A boundary is a pathway, a structure, a gentle map for how love can safely reach you. It is you saying, I want connection, but not at the cost of my peace. I want closeness, but not if I have to disappear to get it. Boundaries protect the relationship, not push it away. They are not walls, they are bridges, and they are one of the most powerful tools you have in a trauma-impacted marriage. If any part of today's episode made your chest loosen, your mind calm, or your heart whisper, oh, that explains so much. I want you to go back and listen to those 3 episodes, the full versions. These were just a snippet. Together, these 3 episodes are a roadmap, a way to finally understand the patterns, the pain, and the possibility inside your marriage. Healing doesn't start with fixing someone else. Healing starts with seeing the truth clearly and then choosing something different, one regulated moment at a time. Thank you so much for being here. Share this with someone who you know needs it, and I'll see you next week. You're not alone in this, and you are so much stronger than you think.
All right, that's a wrap for today on Love and Trauma, the real deal. Big thanks to my guests for sharing their insights. Couldn't have done it without you. Now, for those of you looking to take this journey further, I've got something special. Head to my website to grab Real Tactics, Real Healing, a survivor's playbook for navigating a relationship with a trauma survivor. It's packed with everything you need to know, do, and say to navigate the emotional minefield, find your balance, and regain your self-worth and happiness.